Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
With savvy consumers more informed than they've ever been, isn't the best sales idea to help buyers get themselves over the purchase line? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. This sales approach is called self-persuasion, as opposed to the traditional selling technique of direct persuasion, a more effective angle when consumers knew less. As a result, sales advisor and CEO of the AHA Advantage, Harry Mills, reckons people are also more jaded when it comes to sales spiel. So, if that's the case, how do you get them to buy? As it turns out, you don't. Harry Mills explains the difference between these two sales methods to Heather Dawson.
With direct persuasion, you use your facts and arguments to try and convince a person why they need to buy. With self-persuasion, you help a customer find their own reasons for wanting to do something. So effectively what you're doing is helping people convince themselves.
Why is self-persuasion so much more powerful than direct persuasion?
Well, the answer is very simple. We resist direct persuasion because we push back on other people's reasons. And when we use self-persuasion, we don't argue with our own reasons. Why would we argue with ourselves? It's that simple.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there's scientific evidence to all this. How much scientific research has actually been done on the power of self-persuasion, Harry? And can you give us some examples?
Well, there's actually hundreds of studies been done. Most of them start in the Second World War. And the problem is most of them are buried in the academic literature. But to give you a couple of very powerful examples, right? Sellers have been taught for nearly 100 years that when they describe a product, they should use the word features to describe what it does and benefits to describe the outcomes. So it's a features and benefits conversation. What the research found, that instead of saying, and this was an example done with the introduction of cable television into an American district. Instead of describing that cable TV was coming to down and there were so many channels and you could get this and this and this, all they said to people was, they gave a little bit of description and they said, now imagine that you had access to cable television in your district. What would this mean for you? Now I'll repeat that. Imagine if cable television was available in our town, what would it mean? Well, when they came back and tried to sell the new cable television that was coming to thing, they found the people that had actually heard the traditional features and benefit presentations, most of them had forgotten the message. And the people who used the Imagine If, they bought 248% more subscriptions to cable TV. And the reason is simple. If you use the word imagine, it's self-persuasion. There's no resistance. You're actually using it, and when you imagine something, you weave it into your memory. And so basically imagine is a very powerful self-persuasion technique. That's the first one, extraordinarily so. Now the second thing is, let's take the traditional thing of selling. In sales, they have a thing called the ABC, always be closing. Every sales course somehow manages to mention the ABCs. And it's a classic thing which says, ask for the order, close it down. Don't take away the choices of a customer. But self-persuasion research shows the exact opposite works. There was a remarkable experiment first tried out in a mall in France where people set up beggars in a mall who asked people in the shopping mall whether they would give them money to catch the train home. And one group of beggars simply said, I'm poor, I'm hungry, would you give me a couple of francs to catch the train? And the other one said, look, would you be kind enough to give me a couple of dollars, but I do appreciate it's your choice. You do have the right to say no. Well, that experiment showed that the people who were giving to these beggars donated over twice as much. In fact, in the first experiment, 11 times as much to the beggars who reminded the giver that it was their choice. They had the right to say no. Now, that experiment has been tried over 20,000 times in 44 different sets of experiments, and wherever you tell people it's your choice, you have the right to say no, the chances of success in getting people to say yes double. Now, isn't that extraordinary?
OK, so what should a seller do, Harry, when they first get to meet a prospect, their first meeting?
The first thing a modern seller needs to do in a very competitive world where there are lots of competitors out there and people has access to Google is they need to be able to communicate a simple message. And I call it a smarter way of being faster, better and cheaper. In other words, the first thing you should have a conversation with is what makes you different. And so you say, look, I appreciate that what you're looking for is something that's faster, better and cheaper, but we have a smarter way of doing that. And then you have a quick description of what makes you smarter. That brings the conversation down, right down to what you can do, how you add value.
And from there, Harry, what do you need to do to clinch the sale?
Well, I call it the 3 Ds. You've got to be able to prove that you're different, you're more desirable, and there's a third D. Skeptical customers want to know that you can deliver. So the 3 things that you need to convince customers are that you're different, more desirable, and you can deliver. So if you can show someone faster, better, cheaper, that's the reason they'll engage with you. We'll give you a chance, particularly if you've got a track record. The second thing is if you can convince people that you're different, desirable, and you can deliver, by definition, you are unique. You can charge a premium, an innovation premium, for what makes you different and more desirable.
OK, well, if you had to reduce your book down to 2 key points, what would they be?
The key to sales success is get in early, and the way to do that is first to eliminate resistance using self-persuasion. And once you're in there, the second thing you should do is show customers how you can provide smarter ways of faster, better, cheaper. That sets you up as a value multiplier.
And well, Harry, if you say that, if you want to sell by using aha insights, you need to start at the top. Tell us about Andy Mooney and the Disney princess story, because that illustrates the importance of insightful selling, doesn't it?
Andy Mooney had been the head of marketing at Nike and came across to do the same thing to Disneyland. Now, one of the earliest things that Andy Mooney did is he went to a Disney show which had thousands and thousands of Disney fans all dressed up at this concert. And what he couldn't get over was all the little girls, whether they happened to be 3, 13, 14, 15 or even older, were all dressed up as what he called Disney princesses. They could be Pocahontas or they could be characters from any one of a number of Disney shows. So he'd never seen this before. He couldn't believe it. So he went back the next day and convened his marketing team. And he asked them how they delivered things to Disney princesses. And they said, we don't. They said, we market everything according to the story. So there's a Disney story or a Disney film, we just market product according to the particular story. We don't have anything for Disney princesses. So he said, well, let's develop a sub-brand called Disney Princesses. And this was a blinding insight, and within 1 year, Disney was selling over $500 million worth of princess outfits and related items. What he'd got was a blinding aha that everybody identifies with one of their favourite characters in a Disney story. And above all, they've got characters, as we know, around little heroines called princesses. And doesn't every father call his daughter a princess somewhere along the line? And so that little insight from an outsider was a blinding aha which caused them to rethink the whole way their salespeople communicated what they were selling to various markets across America. And that's what you need to do quite often. You need to start inside the organisation and look for value multiplying ahas or insights. You never know, you may find a princess.
That was Director of the AHA Advantage, Harry Mills. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.